This diagram maps out a common justification for betting everything on the AI transition. The logic is simple. If the technology fails, it won't replace your labor and you keep your job. If it succeeds, the AI companies in your portfolio make you wealthy. But this model ignores the double loss scenario. If an AI investment bubble pops, it can trigger a market-wide crash that wipes out your savings and forces your employer into mass layoffs. You can lose the money and the career at the same time. Making financial or career choices based on internet memes is dangerous. We are currently caught between headlines promising a post-scarcity paradise and films warning of a mechanical apocalypse. To find a realistic strategy, we have to look past the entertainment. We need to use economic game theory to map out the actual trajectories of technological disruption. The future of our society branches into 9 specific endpoints. These aren't random guesses, they are predictable socioeconomic destinations. 2 variables determine which branch we take: the ownership of the hardware and the distribution of the resulting wealth. Because human institutions operate under rigid structural rules, many of these futures are practically inevitable. Others exist only as statistical fantasies. Protecting your portfolio requires focusing on the specific paths our current market forces are creating right now. When exponential technology moves faster than the slow pace of government regulation, the market defaults to a corporate monopoly. This monopoly is anchored in physical hardware. Artificial intelligence requires massive amounts of specialized silicon, concentrating leverage in the hands of the organizations that own the data centers. The entities controlling these server clusters use the technology to push production costs toward zero. They extract maximum profit while decreasing the market value of middle-class professional skills. For the general public, this means a period of intense economic anxiety. Your income may drop long before society builds a safety net to replace it. A different branch leads to the Star Trek utopia. This requires high taxation on automated labor and a system of universal basic income to support a post-scarcity society. Our path is currently restricted by entrenched political gridlock. Current institutions are resistant to rapid wealth redistribution, making a direct jump to utopia impossible. The monopoly phase is a mandatory transition we have to endure. History shows that governments generally only implement major safety nets after the economic pain becomes a threat to social stability. This means owners of capital will likely thrive immediately. Professionals, however, must survive an economic winter while waiting for a political response that could take decades to arrive. Some technologists propose an alternative to economic irrelevance, integrating human biology directly with digital infrastructure. High-bandwidth brain-machine interfaces are being developed specifically as a survival mechanism against machine dominance. This cyborg path allows you to retain your individual consciousness. However, it creates a rigid class divide between those who can afford the hardware and the organic humans who cannot. The most extreme version is the hive mind.
This involves uploading every human consciousness into a single synchronized data stream. Because every thought and memory is shared across the network, individual privacy and the concept of the separate self are erased. Moving consciousness into a non-biological substrate could solve the problem of physical scarcity. However, it forces us to choose between extreme class segregation or the permanent end of the individual ego. There are also structural dead ends where the entire technological game is forcibly terminated. In a great interruption, geopolitical rivals might decide that losing the AI race is an absolute existential threat. To prevent an adversary from achieving a breakthrough, they could use physical force to destroy global chip production and data centers. If an AI catastrophe occurs, survivors might choose a great regression, legally banning advanced electronics and returning to manual agrarian labor to prevent a second crisis. These scenarios remove the threat of digital monopoly, but the cost is a total reset of human civilization. You cannot hedge for a civilizational collapse. If the global supply chain breaks permanently, all previous career and financial planning becomes irrelevant. The most likely path is the one history repeats most often: tech fatigue. This is where the revolution simply runs out of momentum. Economic growth slows down when large language models hit physical scaling limits. If the energy costs required to run these systems exceed the value they generate, corporate investment will pull back. We have seen this before. revolutionary promises frequently normalize into boring foundational software that we take for granted. In this scenario, AI is a baseline requirement for holding a job. Employers will demand higher output from employees who use these tools, but because the technology is everywhere, your wages remain stagnant. This plateau is a difficult outcome for the working class.
It locks in current economic pressures without the benefit of a post-scarcity safety net. To find our actual trajectory, we need to filter the tree through current institutional behavior. Extreme outcomes, like a sudden utopia or total extinction, are unlikely in the near term, given our current political and physical constraints. The center of the map shows the highest probability. We are being pulled toward a corporate transition and an eventual technological plateau. The current concentration of capital and hardware points toward a corporate-controlled transition phase, followed by a long period of economic stagnation. If you are an investor, stop betting on a post-scarcity miracle. You should hedge for a monopoly-heavy reality by owning the infrastructure and energy assets that survive the consolidation of the industry. For your career, do not wait for a government safety net. You need to prepare for the reality of tech fatigue and stagnant wages. Surviving this era requires treating AI as a mundane, mandatory tool to maintain your personal productivity, rather than a magical solution to your professional problems. The friction of our existing human institutions will ultimately shape the future of our society. Relying on a sci-fi rescue is a direct path to losing everything in the real world.